Hi everyone, Rukshan here, and thanks for joining me for my end of week wrap-up show in case you missed it. On this show, I give you updates on some of the news stories I've been covering throughout the week and some of the stories that we all might have missed while we've been distracted. So let's jump straight into it. So first up, we have the story of the submarine. Now, this submarine story has gripped the world. Of course, TV screens, phone screens, newspapers, it's all you can read about is what happened to this submarine. Now, of course, we've been told about how it was dodgy construction, dodgy safety, he was using a game controller, and all sorts of things. And almost everyone that's been on the submarine previously and all the submarine experts are now chiming in to say, well, we warned them, we told them, I didn't feel safe. Guys, it's too late now. The tragedy has happened, right? Because, we found out that these people have now been declared deceased, saying that an implosion happened while they were traveling to the depths of the Titanic. But even though the world was gripped and, some places were doing this oxygen countdowns and people were wondering what happened to these billionaires, it was such a big interest story. But maybe it feels like a bit of a distraction. Like a lot of people on my comments when I was talking about the story previously were telling me, Rukshan, this looks like a distraction. And look, I don't really know specifically if it was a planned distraction of sorts, but I understand why people are saying it. And it also raises our suspicions when we find out that the US military, they may have known exactly what happened to the submarine the instant that it happened, because they have underwater microphones, these advanced technology that they use to detect enemy submarines and all sorts of other activities below the sea. They may have picked up on it. And that might actually inform us as to why the US military were apprehensive about allowing rescue missions to come from overseas and so on, because they might have already known it was a foregone conclusion. But why didn't they tell everyone that was searching for it? Why didn't they inform the media that they had these suspicions? It's only later on, after after the discovery of the parts of the submarine have been made, that people are hearing about what the military knew. Makes you wonder, right? I'm going to quickly read this headline here. US Navy heard what it believed was a Titan implosion days ago. Underwater microphones designed to spot enemy submarines first detected the Titan tragedy. NPR has, the US Navy heard the likely implosion of the missing Titan sub on Sunday. So remember we were getting these stories about, banging on the underwater and, these signs of life, these signs of hope. Well, it turns out the US military, they knew all along that it was very unlikely that this was the case. Sensors operated by the Navy detected the likely implosion of the Titan submersible hours before the US Coast Guard publicly shared that it had gone missing, a revelation that means a 5-day search that sparked round-the-clock media coverage may have been futile from the start. The Navy detected an anomaly consistent with an implosion or explosion in acoustic data taken from the same area where the Titan went missing, a senior Navy official told NPR in a written statement. A second official confirmed to NPR that it had registered the acoustic data on Sunday. While not definitive, this information was immediately shared with the incident commander to assist with the ongoing search and rescue mission, the first official said. The decision was made to continue our mission as a search and rescue and make every effort to save lives on board. So that is what they're saying. They were making every effort to save life on board. So I guess that's why they didn't share the story, because they still had hope. Now, what do you guys think? Do you think it was a distraction? Do you think the White House knew? Were they trying to cover some other story that they didn't want people to know? I mean, it's possible. What other story could they be possibly trying to cover at the White House? Could it be this, Hunter Biden's dramas? It was all happening around that time, and some people say the White House preferred to have a distraction on the screens. So let's have a read about what's happening with Hunter Biden right now. And if you don't know Hunter Biden, this is the president's criminal son. That's right, the criminal son of the President Joe Biden. Daily Mail writes, Hunter Biden is seen smirking in a photo taken at Joe's Delaware home the same day he sent Chinese business partner damning text saying, I'm sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Now, Hunter Biden's laptop, that's a whole other drama that I don't want to get into, but this is all related to that. And these text messages that he sent saying that he's with his father to his Chinese business associate is very damning, and it's actually turning into quite a scandal in US politics right now. And it's actually being covered by all sides of the media. So look, it's not looking good for Joe Biden, because all the media now have been given the green light to go after him. So look, this is what Hunter Biden wrote in the text message to his Chinese business partner in the CCP. I'm sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And Zed, if I get a call or a text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Amazing. Quite a scandal. And, the media, to their credit, they're going after Joe Biden as well as a combined effort. Now, at the press secretary, Carrie Jane Perry, she copped it. Here's a bit of that.
I just answered the question. I just answered the question.
No, you didn't. Yes or no? Was the president involved in the shakedown attempt?
Stephen,
Yes or no?
Stephen, I just answered the question. It's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Counsel has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them. Go ahead.
Can you just remind us what your colleague said from the White House Counsel so we have it?
I would refer you to them, and they will share their statement with all of you.
Your statements from that podium. You've stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House Counsel.
This is not a change.
I just answered the question. You just asked me, does my statement...
This is a scandal, right? If you don't know what the scandal is, the fact is that Joe Biden has said, I think on numerous occasions, particularly during the election campaign, that he has nothing to do with his son's business dealings. Well, this text message seems to contradict that, but the White House is sticking by the president's former statements. And like I said, most of the media in the US is now covering this story. Now, of course, Donald Trump on the campaign trail, he has also weighed into this today, and it's quite funny to listen to his explanation of this whole thing. Let's have a listen to Trump on the campaign trail.
Biden is the most corrupt president in the history of our country by far. Just 2 days ago, a very respected IRS whistleblower, used to be very much, you remember when the Democrats used to love whistleblowers? They don't like the whistleblowers now. Revealed that Crooked Joe sat in a room while his son Hunter messaged a Chinese Communist Party official and said to this Chinese Party official, I quote, I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. This is cash he's talking about. Yeah. Tell the director.
Now, of course, the White House denies all of this, but can you imagine if Donald Trump Jr., the former President Donald Trump's son, had sent a message like that to someone in the CCP or someone in Russia? Can you imagine the scandal and the drama? There would be unrest on the streets of America because the Democrats would drum this up in such a way, there would be chaos, right? This would be the end of Trump again, they would say. But of course, with Joe Biden, his son Hunter, and all the scandals he's involved in, everything moves at a snail's pace. But there is a bit of momentum, so that's always a good thing. And, there might be something else going on there with the Democratic Party actually just wanting to get Joe out of the race because, we've seen Joe Biden's actions the last couple of days, or actually last couple of years. He does come across as someone who's not completely there. Next up, we have a story that didn't get much coverage in Australia, but got some coverage in the international press. And that is, of course, the links that have been made between the death of cricketing legend in Australia, Shane Warne, and possible links to vaccines. Now, I must stress that a lot of this is speculation in terms of the way it's been covered. This first broke on the Times of India, where they had an article, medics fear COVID vaccine linked to cricket Shane Warne's sudden death. And it quoted Dr. Asim Malhotra, a renowned British cardiologist who was recently touring Australia, and another doctor, and also one of Shane Warne's cricketing friends who was concerned that the vaccine had something to do with his death. Now, that was it. So there wasn't anything definitive. And then that was picked up by this South African cricket mag who had a story on this, as well as one Australian outlet actually covered it, saying that an MP in the Parliament legalized cannabis MP Brian Walker links Shane Warne's death to COVID-19 vaccinations. That was it. Now, I think with this particular story and the tragic death of Shane Warne and the circumstances in which he died, despite what these cardiologists and, people that might know him briefly, whatever it is, despite what they say, unless the family themselves want an investigation, unless, cricketing, bodies or someone important high up that's linked to the Shane Warne in some manner demands some sort of, investigation or, trying to figure out the cause of this, it's not going to go anywhere. And it's always going to be speculation. But this is a story that got international coverage, but didn't get much coverage in Australia. Next up, we have this is a good one. Last week I would have covered this story of Professor Hotez, a US professor in much the same vein as Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, who is this massive vaccine pusher. And he was challenged to a debate by Joe Rogan, who said, come on my podcast and debate RFK Jr., the presidential candidate, the Democratic presidential candidate, and come on my show and debate him. But Hotez, chickened out, and he's run off and hiding behind the media, even though he was offered a bounty initially of $100,000 towards a charity if he would do the debate. That bounty's actually gone up to over a few $1 million. Even me, I've said I'd pledge $1,000 to this bounty to see this debate happening, because it's important that scientists engage in debates. But what's happened since then? There has been a concentrated campaign against Joe Rogan by the media, the establishment media, by establishment politicians, and by establishment scientists, saying that any serious scientist worth their salt would not go on the Joe Rogan podcast and would not debate. Right? So I'm just going to read some of these headlines. If Joe Rogan asks you to debate, be suspicious. The purpose of public discourse should be to bring society closer to the truth. It's an opinion piece on the Bloomberg. The Atlantic writes, social media has collapsed good debate. Joe Rogan's podcast is an awful venue for serious disagreement. But the alternatives aren't much better. Intelligenza writes, anti-vaxxers don't want a debate. They want a spectacle. MSNBC writes, Peter Hotez's disinterest in debating RFK Jr. on vaccine make perfect sense. And the Wall Street Journal writes, Joe Rogan wants a debate on vaccines. That's just the problem. So you can see the establishment, these scientists, they don't want to have anything to do with any kind of serious debate where they are challenged. And just going back to the previous story of what's happened to Shane Warne and the speculation around his death, unless people are willing, who are in this field, to engage in these serious conversations, there will never be closure on these issues. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing here. Next story that we might have missed is legal action launched against Slater and Gordon for failure to conduct a full and proper investigation. Now, if you're wondering what this legal action is related to, this is related to the cyclist that was hit by the Andrews family car. That's right, Daniel Andrews, the Premier of Victoria, his family car was involved in an accident a few years ago. And there has been a lot of drama related to that for a long time. And this always comes back up. But, this has more to do with the fact that this particular cyclist is taking legal action against the law firm that was responsible for one of the payouts that happened during that time. And he is saying that he wasn't properly looked after by that particular law firm. So this is over that. Some people have been speculating that Daniel Andrews might have to show up into the trial and give evidence and all this kind of stuff. I don't personally think it'll go this far. Daniel Andrews has been able to skirt past this issue for so many years. The police, even though they didn't do breathalyzer, they didn't do the proper investigation, in my opinion, there's been no accountability for that. But let's just have a quick read of this article and see where we're at. Lawyers for cyclist Ryan Mullerman have launched a Supreme Court damages claim in a dramatic escalation of the Daniel Andrews and Catherine Andrews car crash dispute. The Herald Sun can reveal Ryan's legal team are suing major law firms Slater and Gordon for failing to conduct a full and proper investigation into the circumstances of the near-fatal 2013 Blairgowrie smash. The Premier and his wife, as well as their children, could be called to give evidence if the case proceeds to court. I don't think it'll get that far. In a statement of claim lodged on Thursday, Slater and Gordon, a Labour-aligned practice, is accused of failing to act in the best interests of the teenage bike rider and breaching its duty of care and obligation to him when negotiating his $80,000 Transport Accident Commission compensation payment. So there you go, Daniel and Catherine Andrews there. Who was driving the car? So many speculative questions out there regarding this matter, and likely with most of these things, we may never know. And the last story that I have today is, of course, the Voice to Parliament, this referendum that's happening in Australia. It may be losing support. That's right, the Yes camp might be losing support. Here in the Week in Australian, they have an article, Anthony Albanese dismisses Indigenous Voice to Parliament poll suggesting Yes vote has fallen to 46%. Now, if you go back a few weeks, the Yes vote was above 50%, but is slowly falling down. But Anthony Albanese has dismissed those polls. Anthony Albanese says there is no downside to an Indigenous Voice to Parliament and executive government as he continues to pursue his moment of national unity amid polling that indicates dwindling support for the referendum. Reflecting on the 1967 referendum recognition of the legal fiction of terra nullius and the apology to the stolen generations, the Prime Minister has battled away polling numbers that show less than 50% of the population would vote yes. A new poll from JWS Research reported in the Saturday Telegraph revealed people leaning towards a yes vote has dropped to 46% as the Senate passed a referendum legislation on Monday with 52 votes to 19. Albanese says there's a different poll every day. All of the polls, including the one you're referring to, comes from some company. And I note that a week ago, there was a front page story which came straight from the No camp last Sunday. So every poll, including the one that was mentioned today, of course, has a yes vote higher than the no vote. And look, there are so many polls happening around this yes or no vote. Sometimes it's neck and neck. Sometimes the yes vote is up. Sometimes the no vote is up. The mood of the country as we get closer to this vote is becoming more focused on this. So we're going to get more and more accurate data going forward. But a poll will never tell the story, right? The poll will never tell the story until voting day. So until then, as Australians, I think it's important that we keep educating ourselves on exactly what this means and asking these government officials to actually provide detail on the Yes campaign and what that actually means for Australia. I've made my position clear in my videos that I will be, although not campaigning for a no vote, I personally will be voting no, most likely. So there, guys, there's my show for this week. In case you missed it, a roundup of some of the news stories. If you've got any tips for me for news that I should cover, please feel free to get in touch with me. The best way is via the comments. I do read the comments, even though I don't reply to the comments all the time. But again, guys, if you're liking what I'm doing, you can follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, and Odyssey at The Real Rukshan, or search for Rukshan Fernando. Hope you guys enjoyed my first weekly wrap-up show. See you next time.